For us, we're trying something just a little bit different, but almost like just a conference room conversation type of thing. So I will tell you this, if you would direct the questions to me, because I know who has the answer sitting to my left and to my right, but I will do some quick introductions in a minute. So we'll start off with the OIS, the officer involved shooting, and if you don't mind, we'll ask questions on that, if you're okay. Again, this is a round table, per se, with all of us. So just ask your questions. If I don't have an answer, I don't do no comment. You know me very, very well. My staff will provide an answer to you when the actual information is presented. So on the officer involved shooting, we are going to be very, very critical on any more that we give you. It's a long process, and we know with that being said, we're respecting, of course, everybody involved in the case. But to my right, to your left, Director Skip Cole, as you all know him, he runs our criminal investigation division. To his left and my right, Parker Thornley was one of our pilots that was flying last night on both critical incidents. And then to my right, Parker's left, is Brian Armenta. He works on our task force interdiction, which is mostly the Interstate. And then to my left and your right is Lieutenant Keith Oak. Keith Oak actually is in our special operations, so he actually runs our air unit, our marine unit, but also too, he was boots on ground in the woods for the manhunt last night on our critical incident number 2, we'll call it. And then last but not least, of course, to my left and to your right is Director Russ Martin. He's our Director of Patrol, and he also oversees our Youth Resource Division. So first, let's go ahead and talk about the officer-involved shooting. As you all know, of course, the critical incident was December 3rd. The first 911 call we received was at 3:40 in the afternoon. And the actual first 911 call, as you remember, is our suspect, is our deceased individual, which is Mr. Chris Johnson. He actually dialed the phone before the incident started, per se, with the intention, of course, recording and making sure that 911 was us, law enforcement, and first responders were on the way. With the intentions, I think we all know, was to murder, of course, our victim. That unfolded very, very quickly. I think you all know, 10 minutes later, this thing is over with Mr. Johnson being shot by the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office and engaged as shots were fired. So if you remember, of course, I told you my press conference, I actually met with a known acquaintance at that location. So it was a predetermined location where they were physically going to meet and discuss, some issues that were going on between the two of them. That, again, we would love to give you more information on that, but we got to validate it first before we put a rumor out there, of course, in the national media. These are families and people that are involved in this. And to be honest with you, of course, our suspect, Mr. Johnson, our victim should be dead. I mean, 14 rounds fired that we were collected from our crime scene. So we'll back up a little bit. Of course, he's there. Again, it's just off of agricultural industry, Thomas Industry Way, which is 38 Thomas Industry Way. So if you're going down International Golf Parkway, it's just the second off-ramp, per se, if you were leaving US 1, heading westbound. Of course, they meet there. They're discussing it. Our suspect pulls out a firearm. And then you can kind of hear, you all have had the 911 tape. It is difficult to hear, but I'm sure you have your enhancements abilities to kind of make out what's going on. You know it's a confrontation with two known individuals over a topic. He actually orders him, of course, as you heard in the 911 tape, basically, he's going to murder him. The firearm is out, screaming for his life. I think you all heard what it says. He's yelling for his life. He's begging for his life. Our 911 operator is kind of hard to hear what's going on in the background because our female 911 operator, who I apologize, she was going to be here, but we are busy today too. She's actually trying to say, hey, what's your emergency? She's not sure if we got a victim on the phone, we got a suspect on the phone, we got a witness on the phone. As you hear crystal clear, she's trying to make out what is going on in that situation. She does a phenomenal job. And she actually had a trainee sitting right next to her, which I can only imagine your first, hot call per se is going to be an officer-involved shooting. The videos are going to show you from the private entities around the area, and of course 6 additional 911 calls that are really giving very graphic information of what is going on. Meaning our suspect is chasing our victim, and our victim, by the way, is a male suspect, is a male victim. Chasing our male victim around the truck. Shots are being fired. It's not, as you all heard, it's not 14 rounds done. It goes on 2 here, 1 here, a couple more here. Our victim crawls under his own truck, and he continues to fire rounds. And we believe, based on the evidence, that he basically runs out of ammo. So he has to drop of course, his magazine and reload. At that point, the victim takes the opportunity to go ahead and flee the area. The victim actually flees northbound on that Thomas Industry Way, and actually jumps into a passing by motor vehicle that has nothing to do with anything besides just traveling on International Golf Parkway. In the meantime, of course, our suspect, we believe, is reloading based on the evidence, and of course, our victim's car and our suspect's car. We believe he actually, based on the camera footage, he basically gets in the car and he's looking for the victim somewhere in the area there, driving around looking for him. After not finding the victim, of course, he goes back to the victim's truck. For whatever reason, he jumps in the victim's truck, and he, of course, goes down Thomas Industry Way, goes to International Golf Parkway, heads eastbound, International Golf Parkway, and then goes on to US 1. You got to think now, the entire time this is going on, our dispatchers are physically typing information real time to our deputy sheriffs that are responding. Yes, there is some radio traffic too as well, but really it's all being typed and our deputy sheriffs are reading these notes. We got an active shooter. We got a person that's fired 14 rounds, and we got a victim that's fleeing for his life, and we know we got a suspect looking for a victim. Our deputy sheriffs encounter not too far after he gets onto IGP onto US 1, which was, and I apologize on our press conference, I said Deputy Hill. It's actually K-9 Corporal. He's actually a corporal in our K-9 unit, Robert Hill. He sees the vehicle heading southbound on US 1. He attempts to initiate a traffic stop. The suspect does not stop. I think you all understand why. Deputy Jonas is not too far behind there in the same lane of travel. They're heading southbound. Deputy Corporal, I should say, Hill, attempts a pit maneuver on that suspect vehicle. And I got to just back up too. We're talking about license plate information being given to us. We know exactly what we're looking for. I mean, it's pretty crystal clear. And of course, again, with the pursuit, of course, initiating on US 1 southbound. Corporal Hill, again, he attempts to pit a second time, which is very successful. We have a citizen that, and I'll direct it down to Director Cole in a minute, I don't believe we've identified, that was basically real time on social media as this is unfolding in front of our eyes, your eyes, I should say. Of course, the second pit is initiated, and the pit actually is successful. The truck is disabled. The suspect, what happens is you don't really understand where did Corporal Hill go? When we pit, we drive through the objective, and then, of course, once we drive through it, the additional units that we have will take care of it. Well, Corporal Hill did a U-turn, goes back up on US 1, heading northbound, and that's kind of where you would see that live footage of the social media platform. Deputy Hill, or Corporal Hill, I apologize, actually exits his truck, which is a K-9 truck. There was no K-9 engagement. The K-9 was in the vehicle the entire time. Deputy Jonas is kind of stuck where the pit actually occurred, which you'll see on the video, behind our suspect's truck, or I should say the victim's truck that the suspect was driving. At that time, you see the suspect get out of the vehicle. It's very clear. There's a firearm in his hand. You're very clear. You can hear on the 911 call. He's saying, shoot me, shoot me. Now we got traffic stopped on US 1 heading northbound. I mean, this is an active shooter situation, and our job is to protect the community. We think we know he's reckless. We know that for a fact based on just watching the video and what unfolds very quickly. Corporal Hill has his AR-15 out. He actually deploys it. You can see in the video. And then Deputy Johans actually deploys his issued sidearm firearm. Since then, of course, the suspect is ultimately dies. He's actually transported to a medical center, and he ultimately dies. This is one of those things of respect. You know, I want to tell you that this sheriff's office, I don't know of any sheriff's office, I should say, that sits at a table, briefing table, saying we're going to go out and kill somebody tonight. It's the last thing we want our deputy sheriffs to do. It's a traumatic incident. You took a human being's life, regardless of the circumstances, but in this situation, the case is very, very solid to me, in my opinion only. However, we process the fall, and our secondary, of course, review of the officer-involved shooting is done by the Office of the State Attorney, 7th Judicial Circuit, which is R.J. Larissa. So we have a process in place. Where those deputy sheriffs are at, you're going to ask them. Well, they're on administrative leave. There's a process that we follow. They have to be mentally health cleared before they come back to duty. They have to requalify. The officer-involved shooting has to be cleared by the Office of the State Attorney. Their duty weapons are taken, their vehicles are taken, and they're immediately provided attorney counsel, basically, and that attorneys are out of the city of Gainesville. So that's kind of where we're at. We've done health and welfare checks on them. They're doing great, as best they could be. You know, we worry about them because you think about this when you lay down at bed, what can we have done different? Well, you made a decision in about under 10 minutes of a person that was going to murder somebody today. He made it crystal clear that he was trying to murder somebody. So at this time, we'll open that up for the officer-involved shooting questions. And Director Skip Cole, again, is at my far right, your far left down there. So between him and I, and of course our Director of Patrol will answer those questions for you. So officer-involved shooting.
Hi, I'm Biliana with First Coast News. I was wondering how many deadly officer-involved shootings there have been since the start of the year.
This is just a second that I'm aware of.
Director Cole. Yeah, if we don't mind what we can do right here, I got my staff in the back too. We'll send a quick text message to verify that.
But we can provide those stats.
Yeah,
It's not a frequent event in St. Johns County.
The other one was the one that occurred, I forget the name of the road, but it was kind of outside a neighborhood. A gentleman was presumably breaking and entering into a home, correct? Was that the other one?
I'm shaking my head, yes, but before I answer that question here, let's go ahead and staff and just...
Brainerd Road, yes.
Okay.
Yes, Brainerd
I didn't
Road.
realize that was the first one of the year.
Yeah, so what we'll do is I'll come back and answer your question. I got staff sending a text message right now to our Internal Affairs Division and our Investigations Division, and we'll get you an answer on that. But I believe Director Cole and I and Director Martin believe it's just 2 this year. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Liz Ryan, Flagler Broadcasting.
ma'am.
Did the person whose car got jumped into by the victim, I don't know how to word that, but on IGP, the victim jumped into a stranger's car. Did they think they were getting carjacked or something?
Yeah, there was a lot of variables going on here that unfolded so quickly too as well. But yeah, I mean, it was not pre-planned at all. The person was actually driving International Golf Parkway in the area of Thomas Industry Way, and this guy basically jumped into their car and said he was being shot at. I mean, just, and again, 911 calls were just, our community is amazing in St. Johns County. I believe you all know that, to include our relationships with all of you too as well. We got a good thing in St. Johns County. But it unfolded so quickly too as well, again, and I'm not sure, Director Cole, if we validated or verified, but I know that was a 911 call made based on that incident on the end of.
Yes. Obviously highly unusual.
Yes.
And they just let him get in their car?
I don't have those details, but they all called in together and they quickly realized what was going on.
Yeah, we believe it was a window down is what
Yeah,
happened. He
it was.
jumped into, yes, correct. It was a window down on the passenger side, and he physically jumped into the window and said, go, 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 I'm being shot at, is what I believe. But
Wow.
we'll validate that as everything unfolds.
Was it a man or a woman driving?
Don't know.
Don't recall. Yeah. We'll find out, of course, and Commander Harrigan and our PIO, of course, Taylor Levesque will put more information out as this unfolds too as well. Yes, ma'am.
This year, sure. It is.
So, yes, ma'am. So, 2 officer involved shootings this year, and Brainerd, of course, is the one you mentioned. Yes, sir. Yep. Any other questions on the officer involved shooting? Okay, staff, anything else I didn't cover? Okay. Taylor, anything? Commander Harrigan?
All good.
Good to go? Okay.
One more thing before you
Please,
go,
yes, sir.
Sheriff.
Yeah, please.
Has the sheriff's office been in communication at all with any family members of the suspect? Anything like that?
Yes, sir. So a couple things, of course, on the suspect. He's got a violent criminal history. He's actually out of the state of New York. We have been in contact with his mother and I believe his daughter, adult daughter. And again, I think we actually gave you a booking photo, and that adult daughter was a victim of a case that we actually gave you here. That's what he was in jail for. That was the booking photo we gave you. But yes, we've been in contact with him. Yes, sir. And we've also been in contact, of course, with our, as you know, I mean, our victim that was on scene too as well, and providing services to them too as well. I mean, let's just be honest. He should be dead. I mean, 14 rounds at within less than 10 feet, being chased around your own vehicle, I mean, he should be deceased. 14 rounds. And if he were reloaded or had a magazine already loaded, we'd probably be in a different situation as we speak to you today. Officer involved shooting. Okay. That'd be good. Okay. Staff, everybody good? Okay. We're going to move on to, we're going to call it the manhunt, but basically yesterday around 3:45, Deputy Sheriff Armenta from our task force to my right, to your left, was out doing typical interdiction enforcement on Interstate 95. It's not the ordinary for him to have a passenger with him. He actually had a federal partner passenger with him as they do interdiction on 95. I won't actually mention that because they got to do their own critical briefing and incident on that, so it'll take a lot longer than ours. So we'll just leave it like that. But he has a partner with him. It's not out of the ordinary for him to ride, of course, with a federal partner or a state partner or a local partner. Interdiction's a dangerous place to be. Deputy Armenter actually does a traffic stop on a vehicle that was heading northbound on Interstate 95 just before you get to the county line. They pull into the rest stop. The actual individual by the name of Tomal Bo is actually being cooperative, again, and we can clarify some things in a minute with Deputy Armenta, being cooperative, speaking to him. And the next thing you know, the actual suspect of the vehicle takes off. He crosses over the grass in front of the rest stop there, if you're heading northbound, and he begins going southbound. A pursuit is initiated where they cross back over into the southbound lane, and they actually continue southbound on southbound on Interstate 95. Deputy Armenta, of course, is behind them. He makes a decision to go ahead and initiate a pit to very quickly, of course, and end the pursuit in the area of International Golf Parkway. The vehicle is pitted. It actually goes off to the side of the road. The suspect that he identified, there's no passengers in the vehicle that he knew of at the time, exits the vehicle and runs all the way across both the northbound and southbound lanes, or I should say southbound and northbound lanes. And please.
Just the northbound. The vehicle hit the guardrail, and then the suspect ran across the 3 lanes of travel on the northbound side of 95.
Perfect. That's why I'm sitting here. Yep. And I physically told him that. It's like, just speak up. We get it right the first time. So again, he runs across just the 3 northbound lanes, basically, from the guardrail there in the middle of the road. He runs over to a small industrial complex there. He ends up stealing a van that belongs to a local detail company here in town. He actually gets on International Golf Parkway, again, heading eastbound. 2 of our deputy sheriffs physically pick him up. They're coming to back him up anyway, so we got the cavalry's coming. In St. Johns County, when we respond to officer assist, we respond heavily here to protect our citizens, of course, and our fellow men and women and wear the badge and uniform. They actually find the vehicle heading eastbound on International Golf Parkway. Physically, the doors are flapping on the small van, which I think there was some citizens that actually filmed it and put it on social media live. Our deputy sheriff's initiated a pursuit. Stop sticks were actually on International Golf Parkway as he's heading eastbound towards US 1. Before they get to US 1, our suspect's tires were starting to lower from a successful stop stick initiated on International Golf Parkway. The vehicle actually churns onto the railroad tracks right before you get to US 1, so he's on the westbound side of the railroad tracks heading northbound, if you understand what I mean. So he takes a left on there. Deputy Higgins is the primary deputy sheriff in the pursuit, and the second deputy sheriff is Deputy Mangold. They go down the railroad tracks approximately 1.5 miles, heading northbound on the railroad tracks, so if you're heading towards Las Colinas, but on the woods side of the railroad tracks. The vehicle, of course, is now, becomes dismantled, the vehicle that they're chasing, because, of course, the tires are actually popped. Comes dismantled. You saw the photo. It kind of rides up into the railroad tracks, but not on them, but just before you go up to the lift of the railroad tracks. The suspect actually exits the vehicle and takes off on foot pursuit westbound into the woodline. The suspect was simply identified as a black male. Not a whole lot of information. We actually had some information given to us by the witnesses that were actually where the stolen vehicle actually occurred, because they watched it occur. The suspect takes off into the woodline, which if you're not from St. Johns County, that's an old hunt club here. That's probably one of the most desolate areas or undeveloped areas in St. Johns County. There's not many places like that left. Deputy Higgins and Deputy Mangold physically take foot pursuit into the woodline. They become so thick, our two deputies back up, and we establish a very strong perimeter around this area in there. We immediately deploy our air unit. Pilot Parker Thornley was our pilot. We also had a secondary pilot. That's how we fly in St. Johns County. There's a secondary pilot, but a secondary pilot, as he can explain to you with some questions, is the secondary pilot runs all of the instruments in there, basically trying to run the equipment, you know, with the FLIR and the cameras and talking to our deputy sheriffs on the ground. Once our staff releases this, I'm telling you, I had hair in the back of my neck was standing up. I was on the side of the road during this incident, and the way that they were talking to his units on the ground was something I've just never heard before in my 31 years experience. So I knew for a fact we were going to capture this suspect. And this becomes now, it's a manhunt, but we don't know if he's an armed subject. You know, he had little contact with him, little information on him, but we know he's fleeing for a reason this fast, to get away from us for a reason, and we'll tell you why in a minute. Anyway, so we start the manhunt. It ends up being almost a 3-hour manhunt. Well, his pursuit and pit on 95 closed down most of 95. Traffic is rediverted on 95 to US 1, where we have approximately 60 to 80 patrol deputy sheriffs from our agency, Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, Florida Highway Patrol, Fish and Wildlife Division, and our Detectives Division, who's actually going home for the afternoon. So we had a lot of deputy sheriffs in the area, but I can promise you this, the county was still protected very heavily too as well. So our air unit was up top with, again, Parker was the primary pilot. Casey Kumar was running he's another pilot, that's his partner, and they were actually running the cameras like I told you a minute ago. They're physically steering in. Our K-9 unit, Lieutenant Oak, is actually on the ground in the woods along with Sergeant Chris Alexander, and we had K-9 units in there, Bloodhound units in there, and we physically are getting real-time feeds from them to include on some of our cell phones watching the downlink where we can actually see how close that our deputy sheriffs are getting to the suspect. Lo and behold to us, as he'll tell you here in a minute, it's so thick in this woods they can barely move, because they were within 7 to 8 yards, I think, one time, Pilot Thornley. And he'll tell you, too, in a minute here of just how difficult it was to move in there. Anyways, of course, our canines get basically, just exhausted. And we pull our canines out. We get mutual aid from Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. They provided 4 deputy sheriffs with 4 canines. We insert them from all the way to IGP, 1.5 miles into very thick wooded areas on hunting trails and hunting roads, as Parker will tell you. And again, this goes on for hours. Well, it gets dark. Our staff makes a decision. And every time I say we, I'm lying. This has nothing to do with Rob Harwick. I sit there and watch and make sure there's no other resources to add to the situation, and I stay out of their way and just pray that everything ends, of course, with nonviolence. I'm going to kind of turn it over before I go into further and talk about the suspect, but I also want to give it to Lieutenant Oak and talk about ground operations and what it looked like in there, sir.
Sure, thank you, Sheriff. So I was part of the ground operations. A lot of individuals involved in ground operations, from outer perimeter to the K-9 teams to the function I was filling today. Normally, yes, as a lieutenant, even in the command post, but as luck had it for me, that was staff, so I was able to fill in where the need was, which at this point was the ground. So myself and 2 other deputies were basically running security, so we always send deputies with the K-9 team so that they can focus on their K-9s and we can focus on their security. So we let them work, and they have that comfort to work because they know we're watching their left and right. So of course, the vegetation was probably some of the worst vegetation I've ever been in. I've been with the sheriff's office 26 years. I did some time on the SWAT team. I played in a lot of the wooded areas of this county, and that was rough. It was rough. And when you weren't in thick vegetation, you were in ankle to waist deep swamp water. So negotiating stumps and down trees and just heavy cold water, and not the nicest water to be in. So that was the environment that he was maneuvering in, and that was the environment that we were encountering to capture him. So it was a slow moving, I think probably a chess game is probably the best way to describe it as you watch footage of getting our personnel in on top of him and getting him into custody. Yeah. Tough
So,
environment.
just an odd situation. You've got the lieutenant over air operations, happens to be in the woods. So just an odd operation. He's actually in his Marine uniform, which is our Marine unit uniform. But again, his subordinates are in the aircraft above him, kind of working with them in there. Two of the canines that were actually on the ground was Melanie Merritt. She's, if you don't know, she's a nationally renowned bloodhound trainer. Her dog, Daisy May, has found so many things in St. Johns County, from missing kids, people with dementia, to a lot of suspects that have run from us, too, as well. He's not an engagement dog. He's a dog with a heck of a nose on him. Also, too, they kind of work, as he'll tell you, they work side by side with each other. So the other dog with him was Logan Chirac, which is another canine handler. He has an engagement dog, which is Junior. So Junior is a patrol dog. He's a narcotics dog, and with a dual-purpose dog. He's also, of course, an apprehension dog, too, as well. So they're working in tandem together. The bloodhound sniffing, and the apprehension dog is waiting, of course, to engage if we need to in that situation. So one thing, too, so Parker, if you don't mind, Pilot Thornley, just go ahead and explain, of course, air operations at the same time, simultaneously.
I was wondering if we could move the mics.
You sure can.
Closer to him. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, got all of them?
Oh,
Is that one mic?
Right here?
ours
This
is
one.
right here. Yes. Yes, is that good? Sorry.
Pilot Thornley.
Yes, sir.
Just speak up loud, please, so we can get everything to come.
Yeah, as loud as I can, I apologize. Yeah, we heard the pursuit happening, and we made the decision to get up as quick as we can, and we actually intercepted the pursuit around International Golf Parkway, right before they reached US 1, and we were able to pick up the pursuit, and my coworker, our tactical flight officer, Deputy Kumar, was able to call out the pursuit from there, and we had eyes on the subject as he went into the woods. We were able to use the forward-looking infrared camera, which is, we call it FLIR for short. So use the infrared camera to see heat and see that guy going into the woods. As he went in there, we were able to track him all the way through the dense brush. And while our perimeter was being set, we were able to keep eyes on him and make sure he didn't get too far or cause any harm down in the woods. At that point, we were just trying to set up a good perimeter and make sure eventually move in with K9 and direct people to get him.
These guys are minimizing a critical incident that was just, 3 hours of just nothing besides a professional, first class, clear, concise, factual information. It just was amazing. And what he didn't mention was our canines get exhausted. We're in the middle of a wooded area. He's got to walk them back out to an area where they're physically crawling on the ground with their canines to get to the suspect. There's another part of this thing, too, as well. Our suspect is fleeing, but also, too, we have a duty, of course, to render aid, too, as well. If that person, of course, is hypothermia, it got cold last night. All of our people will tell you. And the reason why our canines lasted as long as they did is because it was cold and they were in water, so their body temperature was, it was told to me this morning by one of my canine handlers. So one thing I want to back up to as well, I meant to include you too, Deputy Armenta. Please, if you will, just go ahead. Anything I missed, of course, on your traffic stop up there in your interdiction.
Thank you. So I conducted the traffic stop on I-95, and the suspect went off, pulled over onto the northbound rest area. I requested his driver's license after I informing him the reason for the traffic stop. He said he didn't have it, said it was his wife's vehicle. Upon requesting him to step out of the vehicle, he placed the vehicle in drive, fled the scene of the traffic stop, and did a U-turn through the grass and proceeded to go southbound, northbound traffic. Shortly after, change his lanes going southbound. Shortly after that, a pit is done. The suspect flees from the vehicle. I know the duty is we want to go after him, but we need someone to stay with the vehicle to clear it to ensure there is no other people in it, even though we have already seen it. I remained with the vehicle while these gentlemen did their work in the woods.
If you don't mind, Deputy Armento, too, did you have I assume you gave a suspect description information?
So I provided the details of the car with the Georgia license plate. My co-partner, Jared Carter, as he was chasing the suspect, informed via radio what the suspect was wearing, his color of skin, which way he was headed for that part.
Just so you know, too, Deputy Jared Carter is an interdiction officer, deputy sheriff with St. Johns County Sheriff's Office. He works for this agency. I will go through this. I know he knows this too as well. So at 6:58, there's a canine engagement. Actually an officer from the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office with Canine Rec, REK, did the engagement there, and Lieutenant Oak and his team put the subject into handcuffs, of course, rendered first aid, and we put him to, I believe he was checked by fire rescue. Is that correct,
Yes, sir.
Lieutenant?
I was not actually in the apprehension team with the K-9s. We were kind of stuck where we were, working our way back out of the wood line while the rest of the search continued. He was able to move away from us.
Okay. So the individual, of course, in question, which we talked about, was Tomal Bo. He was charged by Deputy Armenta for fleeing and eluding. He was charged aggravated fleeing and eluding, resisting arrest, grand theft of motor vehicle, the vehicle ended up being stolen out of Georgia?
No, he stole the.
I'm sorry, the van.
He stole
the white
the
van.
van.
Yep. And then also to possession of marijuana, not more than 20 grams. Additionally, and I think we can all figure out now why he ran from us, he has 2 detainers out of Broward County Sheriff's Office for failure to appear, possession of methamphetamine, failure to appear, resisting obstruction without violence. And here's probably the kicker right here. He's an illegal here from the Bahamas. He has an Interpol warrant, which is basically an international warrant for his arrest out of the Bahamas for aggravated robbery out of the country of Bahamas, the island of Bahamas. ICE has picked up the removal investigation. Of course, he does have all those warrants to deal with first in St. Johns County and Broward County. But here's a clear example of, and we're going to know information down the road, where he has a legal visa to come to America. He's fleeing a violent offense in the island of Bahamas. And then he comes here and he overstays his visa, and there's no measures in place to hold him accountable for the visa expiration. So I'm not going to give you a lot of information on that. It's in the very infant stages. Besides, Director Gabon, who's behind us in charge of our jail, has verified that he does have an ICE detainer and that he is subject for removal under the current immigration violations and laws. So staff, unless I missed anything on that, Director Martin, anything from the patrol side of the house on that?
No, sir.
Okay, Lieutenant Oak. Anything I missed?
Well, let me,
Please,
can I add
please.
this? So, and this is the teamwork here at the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office. I can tell you that last night could not have been successful if it wasn't for the K-9, the patrol personnel, and the aviation unit, and our commitment to work together as a team. When some people ask why we need such, high-end equipment and needs, is the cost worth it? It's absolutely worth it. I felt safe because they were above me. K-9 felt safe because we were with them, and that's what it's all about. And that keeps the community safe, and that's why people move to St. Johns County.
Deputy Armenta, anything we missed on this,
No,
this one
sir.
here? Parker, Thornley? Director? Okay, we'll go ahead and take questions on this particular incident right here. Yes, ma'am.
Sheriff, I have a question for you. FHP's manual, patrol policy manual, does cite that troopers, law enforcement does have the discretion to pursue in a high-speed chase, even when it is in the wrong way.
Sure.
What do you say to people who are skeptical and concerned about dangers to law enforcement and fellow drivers?
First of all, so I'm going to be very careful what I say because we always go through policy review and critical incidents too as well. So here I have a deputy sheriff sitting next to me, subject deputy sheriff. Everything goes through policy review in the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office. Lieutenant Oak made a comment to me, were we pushing the envelope in the woods? Yes, we were. Were we pushing the envelope, of course, on Interstate 95? Yes, we were. These deputy sheriffs make these split-second decisions, and next thing you know, you're doing something. You go back, look at your body-worn camera, and go, by the grace of God, it's like we've done these things, and I've been in this business for 31 years. So I simply tell you that the policy's in place because we make these decisions, but our job, too, is to get these violent felons out of St. Johns County. Did we know what we know now? Absolutely not. But there's got to be a reason why a person makes that decision to stop on a lawful traffic stop. So here he is rationally thinking, I'm going to stop. But then I think what he does, he makes a decision based on, and again, just like everybody else in this world, you judge based on what you see. Well, he sees a deputy sheriff dressed in a very unique uniform. He's been in America for a very long time, I think since 2017 or 18 is what I believe the date was, roughly. Director Gabon, if you can correct me if I'm wrong. So roughly 2000s. So he's been in America long enough to understand that law enforcement in traditional uniforms like I wear are traditional deputy sheriffs per se. But these deputy sheriffs that are on Interstate 95 in marked vehicles, but they're ghost letters on there, he's putting two to two together. That this is not your typical deputy sheriff or law enforcement officer. So, I'm just going to sit here and tell you today that this deputy sheriff next to me made a decision. By the grace of God, our suspect too, made the decision to cross over too. But again, now we have a duty to protect our citizens too as well. So again, I don't want to be too far in the weeds on that. With again, very, very fresh. We're not even 24 hours, and we go through policy reviews on everything that we do. But unfortunately, the policies and procedures in place, and it's never the same. I can tell you that I've been doing this 31 years. He's been doing this over 25 years, over 25 years, over 25 years. And we can tell you that never it's the same again. And here we go changing policy. Every time we do, not just this policy, but every policy. Sometimes you just sit and go, okay, let's go ahead and just sit this thing down. What could we do right or what could we do wrong? But everybody went home that day. Our suspect's in custody. He's not hurt. He's got a small dog bite on his rear end. I think he'll live. And of course, and everybody else, of course, in St. Johns County was not hurt. So yes, ma'am.
When it comes to like piggybacking off of that, like
Please.
the pit maneuvers, like do you all make sure the cars that are on the road are far behind you all when you do that, or what goes into that?
We'll tell you this, I came to the sheriff's office and almost 5 years ago now, and we train. We train to fight, and then, we don't use certain things because we're not confident enough to use these things. Well, here in the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office, I'll tell you this right out. I tell my deputy sheriffs that you end it as quickly as you can. The good old days of chasing cars for 17 miles is dangerous, and my deputies know that, and that's why you'll see us pit the car immediately. And I think all of you know here, too, we pitted people that were actually in a medical emergency. But the one we had actually was driving the wrong way on US 1. We still have a duty to take care of our people. I mean, you head-on crash, like, what did you do to stop that person? So again, this is one of those things, of course, we get there and we Monday morning quarterback of decisions my deputy sheriffs make on incidents that occur all the time in St. Johns County. But I simply tell you that, we make those split-second decisions. And go back to the officer-involved shooting, less than 10 minutes later, our deputy sheriffs are pulling the trigger. Less than probably 10 minutes later, our deputy sheriffs now are doing stop sticks on a vehicle he had on 95 that are running from him in a pit maneuver, who is still running from us on foot, now stealing a vehicle. So again, all these things come together. I know our citizens in St. Johns County stand behind us and support us, and we appreciate that. Me as a sheriff, I stand in front of my deputy sheriffs, and I hold them accountable for their actions, but I also tell them, too, we're going to professionally be aggressive, and if you're going to pit, you got to pit them quick, because we want to stop these things very quickly. So here we go, training, but not using the training. We have gotten very, very, very good at pitting cars in St. Johns County, and very quickly, too, as well. Go back to the officer-involved shootings. Less than 2 miles, we have that car pitted in an active shooter. This situation here, it's one exit to one exit. We got the car pitted and stopped on 95. So the goal of the deputy sheriffs, and he can speak for himself on 95, but I have watched them do this. Usually one of them actually backs up and stops traffic. But when our lights are siren on 95, believe it or not, people respect us, and they back off, and it gives them the room to successfully do the pit. But if you don't mind, Deputy Armenta, you made the decision to pit, and you can explain why you made the decision to pit.
So at that point, he had just gotten back on. So he had just gotten back to a point where he was about to go back into the wrong way of traffic by attempting to go off of the on-ramp of IGP, which he would have been going northbound on the southbound on-ramp. He decides to continue southbound, at which point I had enough leeway and there were people behind me. I saw multiple patrol vehicles coming behind me. So I knew that he had already slammed on his brakes to get me to go past them. So I knew that if I had them behind me, it was going to be okay. So at that point, at those speeds, with the minimal traffic around us, I knew that I could do the pit without injuring or harming another person's vehicle or person at that specific moment.
I will tell you this to kind of follow up on that too. These pit procedures too, as well, there's a science to it, and the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office is figuring out the science to it. We've had an incident, talk about the officer-involved shooting, that's when you have to take a little bit more risk, because we got an active shooter, and we can't risk anybody else getting out of the vehicle and being shot. I mean, we know that he's physically going to murder somebody, to include yelling on his 911 phone that, kill me, kill me, kill me, almost like a suicide by cop case. But with that being said, these individual circumstances that they make these decisions on, a murder case, you kind of forget about the parameters and the variables that are around you on US 1, where you just got to stop this person, and you can't back off and let them go. And we get in the same situation. If they're willing to recklessly go and take someone's life with a head-on collision, it's crazy. We got to stop it as quick as we can. And we feel in this position where these deputy sheriffs made a decision as quick as they can on Interstate 95, because they could have went to Broward County chasing this car. I mean, think about it. But our deputy sheriffs in St. Johns County, we've got to end it as quick as we can, and that's the training and the fighting that we do here.
Sheriff, you said that the chase through the woods was unlike, or the conversation that was occurring among your deputies during the chase through the woods was unlike anything you've heard over the course of your law enforcement career. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, and Parker can step up too, and I know he's humble about this. You know, Parker Thornley is flying the helicopter, and I physically looked on my phone on the app, and I watched how tight his pattern is. My son's a helicopter pattern. I know how tight that pattern is. I've been in multiple engagements overseas, you know, with helicopter operations. I know how hard it is to hold that pattern. I was physically watching him above us in a tight pattern. I watched him on an app. But the conversations going on, as Lieutenant Oak said, with Casey Kumar, who's the other pilot, with our ground units, not just guiding them in, guiding the ones that are exhausted back out. And also talking to the other air unit that came to back us up, JSO. There's so many things going on there. And these, men, particularly in this flight operation, the two of them in there, I know for a fact I've been in a helicopter a lot in my life between my military career and law enforcement. There's a lot of things going on to include their own safety in there and the safety of the men and women that are below them. We had a lot of deputy sheriffs in the woods that were down there working this area. So I was humbling to watch for almost 2.5 hours, and everybody that was in the scene, I know he was on 95, and my directors were out there too. Just listening to the communication, it was clear, concise. It was morale boosting. Don't give up. You're close. 5 yards out, 7 yards out. He made some ground on you. He's up and running. He's hiding under a bush. He's laying down flat. He's low crawling. The dogs are close. You're 7 yards out. It just was so clear, concise, and factual. And I think Lieutenant Oak, I called him on the phone this morning. He's just like, it was a great time to be in an operation that was just so professional. But as he said a minute ago, Lieutenant Oak, I feel like we're just getting better and better at our job with so much support from this community. And that's what helps us be better, because when you got support from your community, unlike the rest of our nation, that just shows you, to reiterate, we're doing our job. But I got to go back to training unit, and my agency knows this. I don't know if anybody does it better training-wise than the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office. Our men and women, are level 1 and 2 jiu-jitsu. We roll on the mat. We build confidence. We build esprit de corps. We spend a lot of time with our firearms. To only say 2 officer-involved shootings, I'm proud of my men and women, because they made decisions multiple times not to use their firearm and ended in a different situation. That's pretty powerful. That means the confidence to go in there and end the situation. So again, I simply answer with a lot of variables involved, but it goes back to the men and women under our training division, under Lieutenant Zach Cook and Matt Harding and Corporal Christy Pageant. They do a phenomenal job, given that the will to fight and to get on the radio and build confidence, but also, for a lieutenant to be on the ground in a slick sleeve, because they're slick sleeve pilots, telling him what to do, he didn't even care about that. He doesn't look back and go, you're giving us the right, you're telling us what to do because we know you're putting us in a better place.
Was there a dog bite on the suspect?
There was, yes ma'am, and I thought I said K-9 Rec from Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, REK, he did engage our suspect on the buttocks. And he was actually back in general population this morning. I went by and actually saw him this morning in our first appearance cell, and he was not in medical. Very, very superficial bites. Yep.
Sheriff, did Bo have an active criminal history in the Bahamas when he was granted a visa to come here?
We won't know until the ICE investigation. I'm looking at my director of jail because he got minimum. Yeah, we won't know until the ICE investigation is complete. And you know how the federal government is, unfortunately. Sometimes we get information, sometimes we don't. We just happen to have a great partnership in St. Johns County. Otherwise, we'd probably sit here and not even be able to tell you what's going on. But we have a great relationship with them in St. Johns County.
Deputy, what led up to the stop in the first place?
So I'll go ahead and, so the traffic stop actually was for, actually go and tell.
Right, so while on 95, I observed a couple indicators from the vehicle. I ended up pulling it over for window tint and improper lane change.
Sheriff, how does last night's chase compare in terms of complexity and coordination to previous ones?
I will tell you this, as a sheriff in St. Johns County for the last 5 years now, I just feel like we're just getting better at it. We've taken policies, procedures, we've provided legal representation to our deputy sheriffs where it's not out of their pocket. That's what we should be doing for them, is representing them well. Putting training, building confidence in them too as well. So I feel like it all comes together when it actually happens. I think as media specialists here in St. Johns County that we do a lot of pit maneuvers in St. Johns County, but we end them quick. A person driving recklessly through our county is not, you can't tell me it's safe. And they're not going to stop, they're running from us. And they think running from us, it could be the air, but Parker would tell you they can watch your tag from 4,000 feet in the sky if they wanted to. Their camera systems are so good in that. I might be exaggerating some, but I'm probably not too far from that. But the technology we have now as well. But people forget in St. Johns County that our commission, all 5 of them, and you as residents, if you live here, You have basically given us the power to use technology-based policing. Some of you have been in our real-time intelligence center. You see what we're doing there with our technology-based policing in there. Our license plate readers, our partnerships with probably every gas station, hotel, government entity here with using cameras. We now, as you know, we have license plate readers on 95. I think we're one of the only entities that are physically working license plate readers on 95. And we're making it crystal clear that if you commit a crime somewhere else and you come into our county, your journey is going to end here. And I love the fact that other criminals around other counties talk about us and say, don't go to St. Johns County. We have a full-time interdiction on 95 now with a certified narcotics dog out there. Drago, with Matt Moreo, who's handling the dog. We have just invested. And we all know that we are back on 95 with trafficking in human beings, trafficking in children, trafficking in narcotics, trafficking in immigration. We're not going to allow these crimes to be committed and dealt with in St. Johns County. Our goal is to make this the safest place to live, work, play, raise a family, and eventually retire. And I think we're setting the standard there. But it starts at the top with us, me as a sheriff, and my directors supporting what our men and women do. So I just feel like we've just come such a long ways with taking that antiquated policy and procedure, taking FHP's policy and procedure to go, hey, what are they doing right or wrong? Or maybe what this agency, using the National Police Chiefs Association, using the National Sheriff's Association, using case law, talking to our attorneys that represent our deputy sheriffs and saying, hey, what's the best product to protect and serve our people and do it the right way?
I was wondering if we can give the mic to Lieutenant Oak, or he can just describe the conditions again.
Sure. So the woodland conditions varied from what we would call open wooded area where you could move somewhat freely to, and I don't like the word extremely that often, but extremely dense. Visibility during the daytime in the denser sections was down to probably 3 to 4 feet. Once dark set in, it was line of sight. So if you separated more than a foot and you didn't have your flashlight on, you didn't see each other. The terrain went from dry land to swamp, so the water I encountered was anywhere from ankle deep to waist deep. The thicket was so low at points we had to crawl. So so you went from crawling to crouching to when you found a spot to stand up, you thanked God and took a minute and got some back relief, and then you were back in the swamp. So it was probably, it was one of the more extreme conditions we have left. Like I think the sheriff alluded to earlier, there's not much undeveloped St. Johns County left, but he found probably the most undeveloped portion of St. Johns County to do this in.
And I think, too, Deputy Armenta can say it, our suspect had no clue where he was at. Actually, he thought he was in Duval County. So he just picked the wrong county. So if there's no further questions, we'll move on to the next minute. So he is detained and arrested at 6:58. At 6:59, we have multiple shots fired in southern St. Johns County. So our resources are here at this current location. Again, we still have patrol units that are physically protecting and serving the rest of St. Johns County. Leadership, of course, had passed some things off. Then at 6:59 on the same date, we get a 911 call in reference to an address on Lena Street, which is our kind of our southern part of central region of St. Johns County. So if you're not familiar with Lena Street, if you go down US 1 into the city of St. Augustine, just outside the city limits, it's over near the historic St. Joseph Academy over on that kind of side of town. A lot of information because the two victims that were actually shot, there was a third witness in the house. They knew who the suspect was, which I'll give the information here. You know from the booking photo this morning on some of your public records requests. Michael Hankerson, he's known to law enforcement, but he was given to us as he was actually fleeing the area down there. I myself included responded down to that area there. Of course, we have the city of St. Augustine, a great relationship with their patrol officers. They physically head that way. We have 2 adult females that have gunshot wounds. We have deputy sheriffs on scene rendering aid along with fire rescue. They do issue a trauma alert on both individuals which means immediate transport for their injuries. We have a suspect at large based, of course, on the information they gave us over the radio. Again, and there's a lot of dynamics going on because here we are physically 1 minute after our bite engagement and an arrest up in northern central St. Johns County and southern central St. Johns County. Of course, we're working, of course, multiple shots fired. Our SJSO air unit, of course, is trying to physically walk out units from the first incident, the manhunt we'll call it, from Deputy Armenta's incident. They're not going to leave their men and women in there. We got a person under arrest, of course, and who's walking them out. We got deputy sheriffs that, of course, probably need some dehydration, medical need, and evaluations. They're also getting close, of course, to refuel time, too, as well. At that time, of course, our SJSO unit made the decision to go ahead and everything was wrapped up there. They went ahead and landed their helicopter at our hangar. They refueled. They outfitted themselves with night vision goggles, of course, for night operations. Jacksonville Sheriff's Office headed back northbound to get their own fuel and, of course, prepare for their patrol operations. And not too long after that, of course, we had suspect multiple calls come in, which Director Cole can correct me if I'm wrong, or Director Martin. Multiple calls come in that the individual was near the area of Cary Street, which the way the crow flies, probably less than 4 to 5, maybe 6 blocks from where the incident occurred on Lena Street. So closer over to where basically US 1 is at. There's actually an auto zone in the area there, if you're familiar with the area, and Anderson Street is there. We then get reports from a second call that is near Rio Vista Boulevard, which is simply just an outer loop where Oyster Creek is basically at right there. So he's in that area. He's kind of boxed in just a tad bit. Our air unit, which I'll let him talk in a minute, did another phenomenal job. He can say he'd get lucky all day, but you do a great job. They see a possible, based on the person that's running through these yards, they pick up that individual on their FLIR, on their camera system. They start giving directions, of course, to our deputy sheriffs on the ground. Our deputy sheriffs on the ground, of course, basically giving directions again from our phenomenal air unit, and the two of them up there talking. They guide us right in, and Michael Hankerson was immediately detained. He didn't wish to speak to anybody, and actually identified by, of course, our witnesses on location and known to our deputy sheriffs that are physically working the crime. At that time, we called, of course, in our criminal investigation division is going from one scene to the next, of course, and they go down to this crime scene here. And we actually asked for a article search to be done because he did not have a firearm on him at the time, so no firearm on him at the time. We called in Deputy Brian Wright, who handles K9 Scout. K9 Scout is basically, John, it's a give me the name of the dog, brother, one of you. Yeah, anyways, it's a very, what is it? German short hair, as my staff is telling me. He's got wire whiskers. He actually works in our youth resource division in our schools. He shows up, and he physically does a track and brings, of course, his handler right to a firearm near a wooded pile not too far from where the crime scene occurred. It was just phenomenal police work. Michael Hankerson is 37 years old. He's very well known to a lot of us sitting at the table today. He claims he's currently homeless, but he was charged with 2 counts of attempted premeditated murder. Both female victims are still currently being hospitalized, but are going to, as of right now, what we're told is survive. Again, extensive criminal history to include some violent crimes as well as robbery, possession of narcotics, starting all the way back to 2007. So at this time, I'll go ahead and take questions on our double shooting.
How old were the women?
Director Cole, how old are the women?
In his age range, in the 30s.
In the 30s, yeah. One is actually very well known to him as a girlfriend. Yep.
And was there a relationship between the 2 women at all? Like,
Yeah, they're both friends. Yep, they're in a apartment together, and I'll kind of leave a lot of that because we're trying to verify. But at the time, it was 2 women known to each other, known to our suspect, Michael, and one of the women were actually the girlfriend, potentially, of Michael Hankerson.
What was the coordination process like going from one scene and then the next scene since they happened so close together?
Yeah, it was controlled chaos. So because we're using central radio, because all this is happening, so we have a north region, a central region, and a south region. This is all happening in the north part of our region, which is where it kind of kicked off. Because as soon as you cross under IGP, it kicks into our central region. So he couldn't do his pit any sooner. It would have been in the north region. It would have been easier. I'm just kidding. But we had everything going on central radio. So everything's patched. We have troopers patched on the radio, K9 officers, JSO all patched to central radio. And then, of course, 1 minute later, everything kicks off with shots fired in the southern part of St. Johns County. So I will tell you this. There wasn't a hiccup in the radio system. Commander Bobby Dean, which is our central region commander who was on scene for the first incident, him and I got in our vehicles and headed south down to Lena Street as they were wrapping up, of course, the north of IGP incident. It did kind of cluster into the manhunt into our north region. So Commander Trey Edenfield picked up that with Lieutenant Sid Miker, who's his boss, running that incident command. So it was a seamless transition, I'll be honest with you. And really, they cleaned up their mess in the northern part of the county, and we just moved it to the southern part of the county. And really, it was a quick apprehension of Michael Hankerson to include a fuel stop by our air unit and back up, and then he was in custody.
You mentioned Hankerson was known to a lot of you at this table. Is there anything that could have been done beforehand, like to prevent him from doing something like this or keep him in jail longer or anything like that, since he had a lengthy criminal history?
So I will tell you this, our detectives went home and went to bed. Usually we would have our lead, his case agent sitting here with his staff, but our staff, we went home and sent him home and say, hey, go home. Our suspect's in custody. Everybody's accounted for. Get some sleep, get some fresh clothes on, and come back. So his unit and Director Cole, I believe, and you can, don't put words in your mouth, you got a lot of work to do.
Absolutely.
What was the motive for the shooting?
We're still working through that. They were all known to each other, though. Some kind of dispute, obviously.
Okay, anything else at all?
Yes, I know this week in the St. Johns County Facebook groups, a lot of people are like, what's happening in our area?
Sure.
What would your response be to the residents asking that question?
I was going to close out with this, is that, first of all, these are very independent, isolated incidents. I mean, they're not related at all to each other, just very coincidental that St. Johns County Sheriff's Office would have 3 critical incidents. Do we have incidents? Yes. But 3 critical manpower intensive incidents like that in St. Johns County, I think you all know that it's just not unheard of, but it's not our common way of doing things. So I simply tell you that our community is so good to us here too as well. If I got a handful of complaints, it was we're stuck on traffic on 95. Congratulations. I'm stuck on traffic on US 1. Congratulations. I mean, really, because we're stuck on traffic if we close down 95 now for a traffic crash. So you're in a great, we wanted everybody to be just, and this press conference was called for this. Go into the weekend knowing that everybody's accounted for. Yes, significant loss of a person that's life was taken. We're not here to congratulate anybody on that. However, that's the position he put himself in, and we have to move forward and complete that case. But the other thing, too, as well, is we're not going to tolerate crime in St. Johns County. I think you all know that. I made it crystal clear that I support my deputy sheriffs from leadership all the way down. We provide the training, we provide the equipment, we provide the resources that they need both to make themselves mentally fit, financially fit, spiritually fit, mental health, wellness programs here. And we want them to go home and be happy. But it's also the other thing, too, as well. This job is stressful. You come to work, and next thing you know, we're in a car pursuit. He didn't plan that. He didn't want it. He didn't ask for it. Next thing you know, we're in a manhunt in thick woods. Next thing you know, we're flying the night mission, protecting a lot of deputy sheriffs in the woods. So I simply tell you that you're in a great place in St. Johns County. Our men and women are the best in the business. I can tell you that. I'm not telling that because I'm the sheriff. I'm telling you that because I came from other places before here. I sat on Criminal Justice and Standards and Training Commission as an appointed commissioner under Governor Rick Scott, under Governor DeSantis, and I saw every disciplinary case in the state of Florida. This doesn't happen here. Do we make mistakes? Yes, you all have heard it. But with that being said, we provide the equipment, provide the training, and then we provide the intuition that we're going to protect you as long as you do the right thing all the time when no one's looking. Are we going to make mistakes? Absolutely. We can Monday morning quarterback every single incident we've done for his 25 plus years, my 31 years, and I can tell you I wish I did things better. But we went home at nighttime. My deputy sheriffs are going home to their families. They put their pants on just like everybody else, but they train hard for the fight, and we fight hard. You want to bring the fight to St. Johns County, you're in the wrong county. I told the guy this morning in jail, I said, you came to the wrong county, man. You came to the wrong county. You probably could have survived another 10 years in America if you didn't come to St. Johns County. But technology-based policing, professional, aggressively policing, and not giving up, and then we put the person in custody. And I'm going to be honest with you, he's in a better place because another jurisdiction would have shot and killed him. He's in a better place. I told him that this morning. So thank you for asking that question. Anything else?
And what does it mean to you to have all the resources as well? Because I'm sure it would have been a completely different story if you didn't have all the resources that you did.
It's difficult sometimes when you spend millions of dollars on a helicopter, but then you justify it on one incident. But I can tell you this unit in aviation, under his leadership, and under Commander Josh Underwood and Director Scott Beaver, I don't know if we're getting ready to be one of the top 6 accredited agencies for aviation in the state of Florida. 6 agencies are accredited. We'll be the 6th of an accredited law enforcement agency. And I simply tell you that, everybody thinks that we're just deputy sheriffs in uniforms. We got 42 miles of beaches to police. We have 226 square miles of water to police, 601 square miles of land to police. We have an Interstate 95 that is averaging over 110,000 cars a day on it. So I simply tell you, I said, we're just in a great place. And that commission over there, whether they agree or not, we're in politics. We don't always agree. But they agree that the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office needs the necessary equipment in their budget to provide. And, we have to pay these deputy sheriffs, too, as well. And I think if we continue to increase their pay, you can say all day long that pay doesn't make you happy. That's false. If you can't pay your bills, finances will drive you to suicide, substance abuse, divorce, doing dumb decisions. So I continue as a sheriff of putting more money in their pockets, putting more money in our pockets that work behind the scenes. Our secretarial staff, our administrative staff, our PSTs. One thing I didn't mention, these all involve a 911 operator, a call taker. Those men and women over there are special people over there. Just 4.5 years ago, 5 years ago, they were making $30,000 a year. I'm embarrassed. But now they're making in the mid-50s over there. But it takes a special woman and a man to sit in those seats and take that call, and next thing you know is a 6-month baby not breathing. Next thing you know, your deputy sheriff, there's shots fired. Next thing you know, your helicopter's having maintenance malfunctions. I mean, these things go on and on and on. Next thing you know, your deputy sheriff's on a traffic stop, and it speeds up to a pit. I mean, so with that being said, I feel like all the equipment we have here, I'm proud of. I look at my men and women in their uniforms. I look at the body-worn cameras on them, and I look at just the professionalism we have in the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office. I'm proud. I was saying as a sheriff last night, I called my wife, who was cooking dinner 3 times last night, and I simply said to her, I said, I'm just so proud of my men and women, what they do. And you watch these citizen videos, live feeds that come in, and I look and I said, my God, they're just so professional at what they're doing. Do we cuss? You're damn right we cuss. And that's something that I wish I could explain to you, but the please, sir, and thank you, ma'am, and all that stuff, I wish I would tell you it's unprofessional. It's not. But I've had suspects numerous times, and the please, ma'am, and thank you stuff doesn't work. But you give those direct commands that are coming forcefully from your voice, and unfortunately the words don't sound professional sometimes. I disagree with you because the mission is completed based on the verbiage that we use. But I tell you today that the men and women are so proud of them, and I wish I could sit my entire 1,100-person agency in here at this table and simply tell you no one's doing the job better. And if I tell you I got a handful of people that are disgruntled here, I'd be surprised if I got a handful of people disgruntled here. We've come a long ways in this agency. The previous leadership did a great job, but things changed from last month, from 2 years ago, from 10 years ago to tomorrow morning. And I just think our men and women do it better than anybody else. And once I leave here, the legacy I leave here, these men and women do it like I've never seen before in my life. It's humbling. It's emotional. Yeah. Anything else? Have a great weekend. God bless and be safe. Thank you.
Thank you.